3 tonight.
So I get to
And I
vote.
just texted you, I'm sorry.
So I get to vote twice, so that's good. Kevin told me I can vote for him, so. So that other. Oh. Hopefully not shooting this way anyway. No.
I got the agenda. I'm good.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the October 25th regular meeting of the Committee on Ordinance. The members present are myself. I'm filling in so I'm Rebecca Lisi. I'm a city councilor at large. I'm vice chair of this committee, and I'm filling in this evening for the chair, Linda Vagan. Kevin Jourdain will not be joining us this evening, but with us we have Councilor Diaz-Dara Lopez, Councilor at Large, and then also Councilor for Ward 3, David Bartley. We never received the previous meeting minutes, so I'd say let's leave that on the table for now and proceed directly to item number 2.
Why don't you take 2 off the table?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. This order is filed by Councilor Lopez that the City Council adopt a special permit application for any methadone, Suboxone clinics coming into the city. Councilor Lopez, since it's your order, do you want to give a brief introduction?
Basically, I know that we put together a draft, and also we're waiting for the planning department, the planning board recommendation or suggestions or idea. So, I mean,
Can you remind me, I'm just curious if we had a a public hearing on this?
oh, yes.
We
The
did?
police came, there were a lot, and we have a proposal. I don't have it with me, but I know that it was supposed to go to the planning board, and I'm not sure, we're just waiting for the planning board, but this is a public hearing. I mean,
This is is it still open?
yeah,
I
still
wasn't
open.
clear on that.
No, still open.
Oh, then I'll
Okay,
make
so
a
then-
motion to open the public hearing.
Thank you.
Second.
So moved. And all in favor of opening the public hearing?
Aye.
So moved.
Oh, good.
Great.
Okay, so the planning board,
Maybe turn it up towards you a little bit more so it's catching. Yeah.
okay, so the planning board has continued their discussion on this until December 13th at 5:45 PM. So they will not have any recommendation for the committee this evening.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Do you think that they're gonna have a recommendation on that day I know that I wasn't able to get to that meeting tonight. Do you think the planning board will have a recommendation from the city council on that day, on the 13th?
I don't know for sure. I know that this evening they had a really busy agenda. They had a lot of public hearings going on, so they didn't discuss it this evening. So I don't know if they'll specifically have a recommendation that night.
Well, if I may, I don't have a problem waiting, but I mean, if we don't get it on the 13th, I think that I will make a motion to close the public hearing at this thing and move without then.
Well, you'd have to I'd have to look at the timelines.
Yeah, I think that we
Because
can-
you can close the city council's public hearing, but they have to give their recommendation. I know in absence of a recommendation, it just has to wait the timeline.
Yes,
the timeframe
absolutely.
specifically.
Okay.
But I think the point that you're making there is that we have a limitation on the number of days before we can make a decision once we close the public hearing. I believe it's 60 days. So can we make a recommendation to the full city council without receiving that recommendation from the planning board?
That's a good question. I have to look at my notes on that.
Yep. I think because otherwise, if we if we can't make a recommendation without receiving the planning board's recommendation, then we are doing ourselves a disservice because we're shortening our timeline without having the information that we need to move forward.
I understand, but I think that in my past experience, I think we have been able to go without the planning board. But I mean, I will wait for the city solicitor, but I'm pretty sure that I'm correct. But anyway, we will wait. It's just that I don't want to continue dragging this for months.
So Sarah, do you mind if we give you a few minutes to look that up and we can move to public comment since we know that there are some folks here? Any other comments from the council? Okay, so then let's invite members of the public to speak on behalf or against this item. Is there any members of the public who'd like to speak on item number 2? Yep. So just come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Okay, and I also have a written copy, would you like?
Definitely submit it, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you mind grabbing that from her?
Do you want extras for the members who aren't here, or?
If you have the extras, we'll take them. Otherwise, we'll circulate them to the full board. Yeah. Thank you.
So good evening, Vice Chair Lisi, members of the committee. My name is Erica Steinbauer. I live at 18 Howard Street here in Holyoke. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. Like I said, my name is Erica Steinbauer. I'm a resident of Holyoke and I'm proud to work as a registered nurse in the medication-assisted treatment program of Holyoke Health Center. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of Holyoke Health Center regarding the proposal to limit the placement of treatment centers for people with opioid dependence to industrial zones and not within 5,000 feet of residences, schools, and parks. We are deeply concerned that this proposal would create stigma and unnecessary barriers for people seeking life-saving treatment. Holyoke Health Center is a federally qualified health center and a patient-centered medical home. We are among the few outpatient organizations to achieve the highest quality rating from the National Committee for Quality Assurance with a level 3 rating. We provide wraparound services for our community members, including primary care, dentistry, case management, behavioral health, and pharmacy. One of our programs, the program I work in, is Partners in Recovery, medication-assisted treatment for opioid dependence, where we treat patients with the medication Suboxone. Suboxone is a treatment intervention which physicians who are trained can prescribe within their practice. We currently serve 185 patients. It is important that we are able to provide treatment for our patients' opioid dependence within the context of primary care and behavioral health. It is medication-assisted treatment. Research shows that people are most successful in treatment when they are supported to increase their recovery capital, which are the strengths that help them to be successful in recovery. This includes their physical and mental health. Providing a prescription for Suboxone in the corner of an industrial zone simply would not have the same impact. It is important that our patients receive care for their opioid dependence in the heart of the health center, where they also see a behavioral health clinician, recovery coach, and primary care provider. In our medication-assisted treatment program, patients are seen at an outpatient appointment every 1 to 4 weeks, depending on how stable they are in recovery. Our patients take their Suboxone at home just like any other prescription medication. There are cases when our team determines that a patient is in need of a higher level of care, such as methadone, where patients come into a clinic for daily dosing. For patients in need of more acute care, there are inpatient detox programs. For both the methadone and inpatient detox services, our team refers the patient to that other organization who provides those services. It is important for a community to have multiple pathways to recovery and for these options to be easily accessible, but they currently are not. Methadone clinics in Chicopee and Springfield have waiting lists, and when we refer patients to a higher level of care, they frequently can't get in when they need it the most. We need to expand and not limit treatment options. There is no wrong door to recovery. As everyone in this room should know, we are in the middle of an opioid crisis. This disease affects all of us as individuals and collectively as a community. Every day in this country, we lose over 129 people to overdoses, and the numbers have gone up each year. We know that people who use opioids, who are people who are at risk of overdosing, come from all walks of life. This disease does not discriminate, and it is a disease. Opioid use disorder is a disease that changes the body and the brain on a chemical level. This disease is not a personal or moral failure of the people living with it, but a recognized chronic medical condition with genetic, biologic, and environmental roots, much like diabetes or cardiovascular disease. Setting up treatment facilities in isolated locations away from residences, parks, and areas generally accessible by public transport adds to the stigma and feeling of shame that many people feel when they become aware that they have a problem that requires medical attention. The proposal you are considering does a disservice not only to individuals in need of help, but to the entire community. Research shows that when people are engaged in recovery, positive outcomes extend far beyond the individual patient through maintaining stable employment and being active in family and community life. On a national and state level, leaders have recognized the opioid crisis and designated resources to expand services that have been shown to reduce overdoses, reduce deaths, reduce crime, increase employment rates, and stabilize family environments. Governor Baker has started the State Without Stigma campaign and has designated the opioid crisis as the state's greatest public health threat. Yet on a city level, we are considering a measure that would effectively block access to treatment for many of our community members, running counter to the mission of the governor's opioid task force and taking a huge step backward in the fight to end the opioid epidemic. We urge you instead to join us in efforts to expand access to treatment and create a recovery-oriented climate in our city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for the speaker?
I do not.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Erica, have you contacted Providence Ministries? Because they were in here and they were saying the opposite. So, I mean, well, you weren't here,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, at the time, so maybe you can review the tape. But they were saying the opposite, that we don't really, it's their experience that having methadone clinics is not the answer. And they certainly administer enough shelters and all the rest of that. So I'm going to ask you humbly to contact Providence Ministries, coordinate with them, and maybe give us some feedback in writing, because I'm going to, I accept this, I accept your argument, but when it's contrary to what they said and their professional staff that came in, where does that leave us, right? Mm-hmm. So that leaves us with diverging opinions on a pretty serious issue. So that leads me, all things being equal, to sort of more tend to favor this proposed ordinance than not favor it. So I'm going to need some, I'm going to need something more substantive than just this opinion. Okay?
I would just like to say for the record that I do believe that Erica is a health professional, so I don't think that it's, just a regular opinion of.
They're health professionals. Madam Chair, you were not in the room. You were absent.
I'm not talking about anyone else other than the letter that I received today, who.
And they were health professionals that came in. So for you, I don't want you to imply otherwise, because that's a tendency that you have.
I'm not implying anything about anyone except
okay.
for the fact that when you say that these other people are health professionals, you're making the implicit accusation that Ms. Steinbauer is not, and I just wanted to, for the record, state that Ms.
That's completely erroneous, Madam Chair. I didn't make any argument that she was not a health. She is a health professional. It says RN right on here.
Yep.
I accepted that.
If I may,
I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, we're gonna, if I may, I know that I made the proposal with the city, with the college, but I think it would be a good idea to hold the next public hearing. I'm more than happy to hear and listen to anyone. I would like to get the recommendation from the planning. I understand from where you're coming. I understand the Holy Health Center, but I think that we need to handle this issue with all the input, any information that we can get, and then move forward. I think that for the three city councilors to go back and forth here tonight, we're not going to go anywhere. We need to get more information. I know you were not here when the power ministry and the police, they were here. He's correct. They did a presentation with completely opposite to what you're saying, and I've been reading and doing some background on this. That's why I put the proposal forward. But I mean, I'm only one person in this committee, so. But I respect everything that you're saying. I don't have any question for you, but I just want to see if we can move the public hearing to the same day the planning board is holding their public hearing.
Could I just clarify one thing for the record?
Please.
So we found out about it, or I found out about it after that hearing, but we just wanted to add our voice. And our team talked about this, and this statement was reviewed by 4 registered nurses, 5 physicians, and the director of the health center.
Thank you. So with that, it seems as if, Counselor Lopez, you're making a motion to continue the public hearing to the same date as the planning board?
I think it's a Tuesday, December 13th. That's what I was
It should
looking
be,
right
yes.
here. Sarah? Yeah, it is a Tuesday.
So they're having the meeting at 5:45 PM, which means they just can't start earlier than that, and we typically start our meetings at 6:30, so perhaps they could rearrange their schedule a little bit, or the order of things that they take up the items, so that they can meet us at 6:30.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
So would you make the formal motion then?
So I would like to make a motion to continue the public hearing until
Second.
December 13th, 6:30.
The motion has been made and seconded to continue this public hearing until Tuesday, December 13th at 6:30 PM. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Motion to take number 3 off the table?
Motion has been made to take up item number 3 off the table. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. So item number 3 is filed by Councilor Roman, order that the city council amend ordinances section 2-37C to an employee of the city clerk's office only during 2 weeks prior to a state election and 1 week prior to a municipal election. City Clerk McGee is here. You could come in and sit with us if you like, or stay at the microphone. And honestly, based on what's here before us, I'm not exactly sure what this is in reference to.
It's actually, I didn't bring my copy, did you? That one you changed for me? Did you? So, Counselor Roman filed this for me on behalf of my assistant, who currently is only allowed to receive overtime on Election Day. That's what her ordinance states. And that's
Is
really...
this
Oh, thank you.
the registrar of voters?
No.
Is a different clerk in your office?
Yep, in my...
Thanks.
Sarah just...
Okay. Oh, we do have a copy of this. I'm sorry. No. Yes.
Yeah, so just to clarify, it's the assistant city clerk, not the assistant registrar. The assistant registrar is able to get overtime anytime. She's not listed in the ordinance as only the election day. So basically, as you all know, early voting started yesterday, and Councilor Roman filed this so that she would be allowed to get overtime during the early voting period, which currently is only going to happen during presidential elections. So it only happened every 4 years. And we don't need to add any money to our budget because during these elections, we get money from the state. Just a couple weeks ago, we received $14,000 from the state, and $5,000 of that went into overtime, and the rest went into election officers. And we also received a grant from the Secretary of State's office for the early voting initiative for $1,750, and that all went into a separate account that will be used for overtime for the staff as well. So I can take any questions, but I think that sums it up. And I keep going to say Kara, but Sarah changed it in here so it was a little bit more clear than the way it was filed.
I see it says only on election days and during the 2 weeks prior to any state election.
Correct, yeah.
So just out of curiosity, the assistant city clerk, is she a salaried employee?
Yes.
And so is this a typical provision for clerks that even though they're salaried, they can earn additional overtime? Because usually salaried employees don't earn overtime.
I don't really know.
Okay. So the position of assistant city clerk is exempt from the FLSA, which are the overtime requirements. She would qualify for an exemption. However, that law is changing. So come December 1st, she won't qualify for an exemption because there's salary thresholds that have gone up. Because of that, come December 1st, at any point in time that she works over 40 hours a week, she would be entitled to 1.5 hours of compensation for each hour over 40. So,
Is that based on her salary threshold?
yeah, so the exemptions under the FLSA, for example, the administrative exemption says that you have to be a salaried employee, but you can't earn more. It's about $455 a week. That's it. You have to earn more than that in order to be able to qualify for the exemption. That's protecting employees that don't make a lot of money and they wouldn't qualify for the exemption. But because that salary threshold is changing to about $47,000 per year, come December 1st, that any employee that did qualify for an exemption before but now makes under $47,000 a year, they would be entitled to overtime under the law.
So just to be clear, the assistant city clerk's salary is at,
It's like bordering 47,000 right now, so I think in January it'll be a tiny bit over.
so it's 46 plus,
Yeah.
well, it's actually over the $45,000 threshold currently, but that's changing to 47 come December 1st?
It's $455 a week right now. And then it's changing to $47,000 a year. But so the council can certainly change the ordinances to allow an employee to be entitled to overtime where they would otherwise be exempt from overtime.
Sure.
Why, I mean, you mentioned the state elections, but I don't see any municipal election in this statement or.
Well, we don't really need to have her do overtime during municipal elections, because
okay.
right now,
So-
the state law only is having early voting during the state elections, so
Okay,
it's not allowed during,
municipal.
yeah, anyways.
Okay, good.
I don't know if it ever will be or not. I guess they're probably waiting to see what happens after this time, so.
Okay, thank you.
Does it need to be 2 week?
Well, early voting is 2 weeks. And as the way the first 2 days of early voting went, it's been really busy, so we definitely need, the staff for it.
Well, I'm just saying, just in case it becomes earlier than that, so what?
Oh, I
Why do you
see.
need the words to, why don't you say the period
The
prior to the
period.
state election?
Okay,
Yeah, I think that will be,
yeah, that would be good.
that's a good amendment.
Just to clarify. So I'll make that motion.
Second, I will second it, yeah.
The motion has been made to amend the text change from during the 2-week period prior to any state election to early voting period prior to any state election. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
So moved. So that's been amended, and
Make a motion to approve as amended?
second?
motion has been made and seconded to approve as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
So
Can I just
moved.
ask one quick question? So if this was to be approved by all of you tonight and then go in front of the city council on Tuesday, I was just wondering if there's any way you could put a provision in there so that it started effective yesterday instead of starting effective on Tuesday, November 1st, I think the date of the meeting is going to be, 1st, 2nd? Just because early voting started yesterday. Is that possible?
I'm pretty sure.
Sarah said it was. Maybe.
Yes.
So let's
Well,
reconsider our
that's
motion.
fine.
let's, yeah, I think I will feel better that way, yeah.
So
Let's-
is there a motion to reconsider?
I would like to make a motion to reconsider our previous action, and
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. So then, would you like to add the,
I would like to make a motion that this ordinance be effective on the 24, that's what you want?
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
date effective
Second.
10/24. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
Okay. Thank you, counselors.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item number 4 is filed by myself and Counselor Valentin, that the, the Code of Ordinances be amended to set specific fines in accordance with MGL Chapter 40, Section 21D, for violations of the State Sanitary Code and City Blight Ordinances, Section 18-35. Is there a motion to take this up?
Second, motion to remove from committee?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have Brian Fitzgerald, our Board of Health Director, here with us this evening. Brian, you want to come in and talk with us?
You want to do 5 also?
Yeah, actually, we'll do 4 and 5 together. And if you want to sit down with us, it may be more comfortable since it's pretty involved. Do you want to come in as well? So that one's done. You know, we got like a million printouts of the overtime compensation. And compensation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll keep them with the jacket.
Thank you.
Thanks. So while Sarah's handing out these papers, do you mind motioning to take up item number 5 as well, Councilor
So
Lopez?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to take up item 5.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. So we're taking up 4 and 5 as a package for discussion currently.
Yep.
So Sarah or Brian?
You want to start? Okay, well, I can go through, so in front of the committee this evening are 2 proposals to amend the ordinances to make things a little bit easier for our Board of Health and for our Law Department in pursuing the enforcement of violations of the state sanitary code. So the first order is to essentially put reference to the state sanitary code into our code of ordinances. It's the same manner that's done for the building code. So that's the first draft language you have in front of you. And the second is to change the manner in which fines are written. There's been some recent case law to substantiate that having a range where it is now currently the language says a fine up to or not more than $300. A range is not sufficient, and for enforcement reasons, we need it to be specific and say, you know, $100 for the first offense, $200 for the second, $300 for the third.
Otherwise, it's interpreted as an arbitrary fine, right? And
Yes.
Brian, do you want to talk about these at all?
Yeah, if we don't change it, if we write a ticket the way it's spelled out today, tickets could get thrown out. So we're just trying to tighten everything up.
Yeah.
It'll make life easier for us. It'll make life easier for the law department because in the housing case anyways, we go to housing court and we think that we're going to get a lot of the, if something's not fixed in a house, chapter 410, instead of bringing it to court, we could probably just find the people and they'll fix it, and it'll take a lot of pressure off the law department.
Yeah.
So it's going to help us both, actually.
And now with the new municipal fines, the ordinance that was passed that allows us to lien the property owners, we can add tickets to that.
Yes.
So if our tickets are enforceable, then they can all be added to the tax bills for collection.
Great. Yeah. Any questions from the committee? Councilor Lopez?
Brian, do you think people will pay that you don't have to, I mean, most of the time they pay?
Well,
How
we
does-
don't write tickets for housing because we couldn't.
Okay,
We had to change this, and that's why we're here, for the housing. I think it'll help.
but let me
not gonna hurt.
let me be more specific. If you go by this specific building and you see the front door is broken, are you able to issue a ticket to the owner? How that will
Now,
work?
when a complaint comes in, an inspector will go out and he'll do a complete inspection of the house or the building,
Okay.
interior, exterior, and there could be 15 violations,
Okay,
and there's so much time given to them to correct. If they only correct, say, 10 out of the 15 violations, then we can fine them for the other
okay,
5 instead of coming to the law department and say, could you please bring this to court? And it could be something minor, because there's a lot of stuff in 410, the sanitary code, and then they could be really minor, and it'll just take a lot of pressure off them. They don't have the time to go to court with that, the little stuff.
I agree. I think the only thing I don't agree is the $100. I would like to see a $300. I mean.
For the first offense?
For the first offense. That way it will be serious.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I know, but sometimes you have to play hardball.
So the fines can't exceed $300,
Oh,
but
okay.
you could, I mean, you could do 300.
300, 300.
Just 300, that's what it is for each offense.
The way it was stated was up to 300, so we had to be specific, 100, 200,
yes.
300.
I would like to see the 300 flat completely. But that's only me. I
But
know.
I understand, like, some of the violations that could be ticketed for would be like overgrown grass.
Yes, yeah.
But that's already taken care of, Chapter 74. That's,
What else would be ticketed for?
it's 410, it's a housing code. It's the sanitary code is a housing code.
So it could be minor.
It could be a broken shingle on a house, it could be a broken window. Do we want to spend, a day in court over a broken window? Not really.
No.
So we're thinking, we're hoping that it's going to speed stuff up, get stuff fixed. That's why we've been coming in here.
Okay.
And in both Chapter 18 and the state sanitary code.
Any questions from Council Bartley? Okay. I think these are really great provisions. Clearly, the inspectors and the Board of Health need the specificity in order to write a ticket that's going to be enforceable, that the city is going to get some sort of result from, whether it is the improvement that we're seeking or the financial fine. And then the second item is just bringing us into compliance with CMR 410 and allowing us to write tickets for a housing code. And is this related to the lien specifically, or does that remain separate?
It would be, well, now we can write the tickets that can be liened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it seems really straightforward to me.
Question.
Sure.
Brian, let's say you issue the first $100. How much do you have to wait for the second offense? How that will work?
We can,
It says
Because I didn't read any.
every day is a new offense. I
You
believe.
have to wait 30 days or
Each day or part of a day that the violation continues or exists shall constitute a separate violation.
every day.
So within 3 days,
not bad then.
you're up
But
to
we don't do that.
$600.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah, okay, so I got my answer. That's
Get
good.
$700 for you
Okay,
in a week.
okay, good. Well, sometimes you
Well,
have to.
sometimes
Yeah,
you'd have to.
okay, that's good.
So we are currently taking these up as a package. Is there a motion to move on them as a package?
I would like to make a motion to adopt 4 and 5 together.
Motion has been made, seconded, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. All right, so items 4 and 5 are both approved.
Ryan, take care. So let me know when you start collecting money.
Thank you. So item number 6, filed by Councilor Jordan, was requested to be tabled, so it can't be here this evening.
Okay,
So-
motion to table?
We'll move on to item number 7 then. Is there a motion to take up item number 7? Actually, there's a number of items here related to engineering. So we'll do one at a time, I think, but then let's invite Yem in. Yem, do you want to come and sit with us? So item number 7, filed by Councilor LeBron Martinez, ordered that a stop sign be placed on the corner of North Summer and Mosier Streets. Is there a motion to take this up?
A motion to remove from committee?
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Is the stop sign on Mosier, or is it going to be on North Summer?
You recommend it?
Yes.
What did you say? Okay, so, motion to adopt.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to adopt item number 7, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Motion to take number 8.
Motion made
Second?
and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. This is filed by Councilor Bacon, that the city engineer evaluate and recommend stop sign placements at Lower Westfield Road near the Elks, where Whitney Avenue crosses the Elks, but the lines are painted in the roads that meet Lower Westfield Road to indicate that there are two-way streets.
I would like to take it one more time.
Okay. Is there anything else then? Counselor McGivern.
You know that area well.
We're joined by Counselor McGivern, Counselor at Large.
Thank you. Excuse me. If you could also meet with the Elks and maybe even have a meeting at the Elks, because there's a lot of functions that go on in that building, and that is a city street that goes in. There's a lot of traffic going into the reservoir too for races and walking and such not. I'll get your name, yeah. Okay.
So including the Elks in that neighborhood conversation. Anything from Counselor Bartley?
Oh, motion to table.
Motion made and seconded to table. All in favor?
All right.
So moved. Counselor Bartley's item number
Motion to
9.
take number 9.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
All right.
So moved. That the city council create by ordinance resident-only parking on McIntosh Terrace that would allow parking on-street, on-street parking on the north side of the street from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. for cars that are registered with the city that display the necessary decal. Under discussion, Council Bartley?
No, self-explanatory. There's a sign up there now, Madam Chair, that says no parking after 9 o'clock. I think it's been there a long time. I'm not sure how well it was enforced, but all of a sudden, folks started getting knocks on doors by HPD, and they were sort of taken aback by it. So this came from a resident in that neighborhood. So we'd like to do something kind of with a residential parking sticker. So somebody would apply for a sticker or tag or whatever it is, and they can hang it in on their rearview mirror, and that would allow them to park on the street after hours, after 9 o'clock. So without that, the HPD, the ordinance will still be in effect. So we're not overturning the ordinance, but we're just adding a parallel ordinance to allow people to park there. Why do people park on street? I would guess so. I mean, maybe there's a few people up there with more than 2 cars and they can't put them in the driveway. And so they're... Well, I mean, I guess my opinion would be if we create an ordinance that allows people to park there after 9 o'clock, and we make it known to every resident in that area. I hadn't gotten that far, but yeah, that sounds like an annual thing. They'd have to apply annually for it. That the forms would be available online in the clerk's office. I think it would be as simple as filling out a form and name, address, motor vehicle, make and model, year, a plate, mass, or whatever it is, the license plate, simple form like that. That'd be processed in the clerk's office, and that the next step would be to, they would sign it, and they would attest to it. This is indeed my car, and that they would. Those interested in looking for such a decal or a sticker or whatever, it would be issued after their application was processed. So. Yes, well, that's good news. That's a whole other side issue, which we'll get bogged down on that one. I don't want to do that now, but I'm glad to hear that, Yem. That's very positive. That parking will be increased there. That was my hope all along. So that was that.
So, Counselor Lopez?
If I'm not mistaken, I think that we have to hold a public hearing, because I think that we're making changes to the traffic and ordinance and all that, especially if you're gonna do residential parking, but I'm not sure. I mean, we have a lawyer here. Just,
So has been done before in the city. We do have public parking that we make resident-only parking. In fact, I recall the most recent one that I've dealt with has been Center Street. There would need to be some type of ordinance. I was looking, I'm trying to find the provisions for Center Street and the other permit parking, resident parking only in the ordinance, but I can't specifically find where it is. If it's in the zoning at all, then it does need a public hearing. If it's in the parking section, the parking schedules, then it wouldn't necessarily need a public hearing.
Yeah, what did we do with the Wisteria-Hearst, the residents across the street from the Wisteria-Hearst eventually? Did we do decals and stickers? And the other question I have is, so I'm just a little unclear, like, are we currently 9 PM to 7 AM parking is prohibited? Is that correct?
It just says after 9 PM, no parking, the sign. I'm not sure how the ordinance reads. Do we know why? Yeah, I think that was established, Madam Chair, quite a while ago, because I think it might have been that area was a magnet for, miscellaneous activity.
Is it the playground from the school, or?
Probably a combination of things would be my guess. Playground, school, so. Crozier Field was a little bit more wild and woolly before your time here, yeah. Let me tell you that for a fact.
So, I mean, I'd be interested in looking into whether or not we need the no parking after 9 PM sign there at all.
I think we do. I don't think that's a negative at all. I just want to answer Council a little bit. I mean, my recollection on Center Street, my recollection on Beach Street, that we did not have a public hearing at all on either one. That's my recollection. So in fact, I'm virtually certain we did not have any kind of a public notice, public hearing on those.
As far as I can tell, and I'd love to triple check this just so I know I'm right, it does say that it'd be it'd be in Schedule 1 of the parking. So it's only in the parking, so that wouldn't require you to have a public hearing. Okay.
Yeah, so I guess, I hear what we're saying about Wisteria-Hearst. I think that's a different kind of a setup. I would, instead of just having resident-only parking, because I think that'd be tough for, and it would lead to a lot of confusion too, because of the park, the nature of a park. I mean, there's a lot of people that go there. I think a resident-only parking sign would be, and the tennis courts are lit till, in the summer till 10 o'clock anyhow. I don't think we want to go resident-only parking. I think the feedback I was getting is that we want to allow on-street parking after 9 o'clock for residents. And I think with a permit decal, something to that effect, it could just be something you can stick on your dashboard, for example, but something with the imprimatur of the city of Holyoke on it. I think that would be, and you're talking probably 8 houses.
So like an overnight parking by permit only.
Even that sounds good, Counselor. I think that, that kind of makes it a little broader. Overnight parking by permit only. I think that works. So, but just so that people can park there. There's some big families there. They have a lot of cars. They can't stuff them in the driveway. So they want to park on the street near the house, and that's their thinking.
So have you had a chance to look at McIntosh in this area? The Crozier. When is the tennis court due to be complete with the parking? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it seems like we could move forward. We can move forward with a decision, and if we need to revisit it once there is additional parking, we could do that as well. Did you, I heard Councilor Lopez ask you if you had a neighborhood meeting, or if everybody on the block is amenable to this? or-
Yeah, I've had only positive feedback on it. So,
Yeah, let's move forward.
so it's the length, it's the whole length of McIntosh, that whole, so on the, you know, it's just for, on the side of the street where the houses are, there's no parking all the way down. On the side of the street with the Crozier Field, there's no parking after 9 o'clock. And now what we're contemplating is to allow parking by permit, overnight parking, by permit. I mean, I just said to this residents, I would just allow overnight parking by permit.
You think you could get that done?
Yeah, is your mic on?
Oh,
Yeah,
your
is that
mic.
mic on? Yeah, it's turning on, thank you.
How about now? Jeff?
Yes.
Yeah, that works, thank you.
So that's not a problem at all. So we'll put signs up.
Okay, so do we need to put that in legal form?
Yeah. Motion to suspend the rules and allow Sarah to speak? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
So I can absolutely put that, or Yam can help me put it in legal form for the parking schedule. The other issue with permitting is which office in the city hall would be responsible for the permit decals. An effective date is also something to consider because it's going to take some time for whoever is in charge of it to actually purchase the decals, and also, inform a manner of informing the residents and letting them know that they need to come in and get a decal, because it would give the police the opportunity to ticket vehicles. They've been doing that down. I do the parking ticket appeals, and they've been doing that down on Center Street, and I would suggest having a process in place before it becomes effective, so that everyone can have their permit, who's supposed to have their permit, and everyone has their assigned parking spot, so that there's no ticketing going on of residents.
Sure, so I don't know if we have to make too much of an expense here on this. I mean, how'd you do it on Center Street did you give somebody a sticker, or?
The clerk's office does that. They require proof of, I believe they might require someone to bring in their lease or proof of residency, because it changes very often. Like if someone moves out, we don't know. So someone would have to come in and bring a lease to get a permit for a spot. But it's done through the clerk's office.
Yeah, I don't think we have nothing but single-family homes in that, so I don't think we need to bring in a deed, or, I mean, I'm thinking more of a driver's license and a
Utility bill.
Joe, when you get pulled over, what do you have, registration? There you go,
registration,
sorry,
that
Joe,
will
not
be-
that you've ever been pulled over, just I blanked the name.
They haven't been.
No, I'm sure. So just your license and registration,
Yeah, that's.
that's really all, so anybody with a license and registration should be allowed to park there.
And I'd also suggest that Yum take a look at the number of parking spots, because some houses have multiple drivers. So to see whether or not how many permits should be issued per
Per
household.
household.
Yeah.
Counselor McGivern.
Sarah, do you know who's doing the decals for Wisteriahurst for Beach Street?
I don't know offhand.
And there also was, I don't know if it's still in existence, one across from the high school. I think it was the original one.
My understanding is that it could either be the clerk's office or the police department.
I think we should identify it just to make sure they can, I'm sure they can, but make sure they can handle it.
So do you want to ask for this to be drawn up into legal form and then review it and pass it the next time we meet?
Sure. Yeah, we don't have to rush this till next Tuesday. Yeah, take your time, and we're meeting in,
2 weeks.
well, we're not meeting in 2 weeks, are we? Because that's election day, isn't it?
After that, I think she's meeting
On November 8th is 2 weeks.
Is that our 2 weeks?
So I think that's election day.
So it's the 22nd.
So okay, so Sarah, is that all right, the 22nd, is that enough time?
And so right now it seems that we should be looking at an effective date at January 1st.
Sarah? I mean,
January 1st, 2017. We should check with the city clerk if she'd be open to processing that
Sure.
permit.
yeah,
And otherwise, we're looking for license and registration to qualify. And we'll get some feedback from the city engineer on the number of spots there and create a limitation for the number of permits per household. And maybe, I mean, you get the information to Sarah instead of waiting for the next meeting so that she could put it into legal form before the 22nd.
yeah, when you talk about limits per household, I guess, what are we thinking? I mean, I don't really know, but I would guess that there's probably, at least one household, there's probably 4 cars that I can think of. So I wouldn't want to say like a 2-car limit, so I want to say a maximum up to 4 cars per
But I think it's
household.
going to depend on how many spots are there compared to the number of houses.
I agree, but I mean, just based on my experience being in that neighborhood so much, I'm thinking that's probably a reasonable number, but
I think majority of the houses have driveways.
every home there has a driveway, so they can certainly park cars on there, but I'm thinking there might be 1 or 2 extra cars per household in certain of them, and I wouldn't want to have an arbitrary number 3, say, per, somebody lives at XYZ McIntosh and they've got 4 cars there. I wouldn't want them to be sort of shut out, if you know what I mean.
Well, David, if they have a driveway, they should be using the driveway also.
They are,
Okay.
but
All right.
I believe that they can't get all the cars in the driveway,
Okay.
hence this thought.
That's fair. Thank you.
All right, so then we'll look for legal form, and in the meantime, we'll table. Is there a second to that
Yeah,
motion?
we'll table this to the 22nd?
Second?
Yeah,
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
right.
So moved. Item number 10 is filed by Counselor Bacon. Is there a motion to take up item number 10?
So moved?
Second?
Motion made and seconded, all in favor? This is about speed limit signs on Clayton Road being placed and other side streets off Homestead that are being used to cut through from Homestead to Route 202 so that police can enforce. There has been an increase in safety concerns in the neighborhood with drivers cutting through at high speeds during rush hours. Yem, have you had a chance to talk with Councilor Bacon about this item?
I have not, but as of November 7th of this year, there's a revision to Chapter 90, Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 17, where the town or the city can opt townwide to reduce the speed limit from 30 to 25 mile an hour.
And that would be citywide?
That would be citywide for a business area and the residential, thickly settled residential area. And should the city opt to do that, then we'll, I can work with Sarah on the languages of the ordinance.
Great. The one question that I had was, there's this statement in here that says we need the signs in order to enforce the speed limit. I understood that if there's no signage, the speed limit is 30 miles per hour, and that the police should be able to enforce that 30 mile per hour speed limit even without the signage.
Correct. And with this revision, we can reduce it to 25 miles an hour. But you can also opt in for a specific street also. But the state is advising that it should be townwide, it should be consistency so that it's not, people don't get confused.
Yep.
But, and yes, we wouldn't be putting up signs for every street. It's just,
That was my concern. I mean, you're gonna go crazy.
it's a lot, right? A lot of signs. And there's under Section 17, there is a way that the police can enforce the speed limit.
Council Bartley?
So is that what you recommend, that we go 25 miles per hour citywide? I mean, on the side.
We'll have a
street.
whole new city council next year.
Say that again?
We'll have a whole new city council next year.
This is for,
25 miles is crawling.
this is residential area, like,
In residential areas, sure.
Residential and business.
and business, thickly settled residential area.
Should be 25 miles per hour citywide, is what you're saying.
If the city can opt but to do that.
Okay, but that's not what this is doing.
Not a recommendation, that's an option.
That's an option. Okay, but what is Counselor Bacon's just asking to put up some speed limit signs? Is that what
We
she's-
limit it's just, it's not a, we can't put up a speed limit sign without traffic study, speed zone and all that.
Well, I think the speed limit
Really?
sign, you would be able to put up a speed limit sign for 30 miles per hour currently, right?
No.
No.
Really? You can't post you can't post a sign that says speed limit 30 without a traffic study?
Without a traffic study.
That can't possibly be true. That cannot possibly be
With
true.
two exceptions. The school zone, the city can, on its own, do that, or a safety zone. We can come up with a safety zone, within the parked area that, that we can have the speed reduction to 20 miles an hour.
That sounds like there should be, if that is true, which I'd be amazed. I mean, that sounds like a home rule petition to me. That's just contrary to common sense. I mean, if the speed limit is 30, and you're just putting up a sign that says the speed limit's 30, you're saying you need a traffic study?
Are speed limit signs city property or are they state property?
And city-owned road, city or town-owned road, they're ours. If it's a state road, just state property.
Well, state road, fine, but I mean, we're talking, Clayton Ave here, so, not a state road.
Again, for the city to post the speed limit, you have to follow, there's a step to follow. You have to complete a traffic study, which there's step 1 through 10 that we can follow. And we have the recommendation forward to Mass DOT, and Mass DOT would review, and if they approve and concur, then they come back and we would adopt it. And,
It seems really crazy considering the speed limit is 30 and we just want to post a sign that says the speed limit is 30.
Well,
Go ahead, Councilor Lopez.
Can you check with them and see if you can get that on writing? Because I mean, that is weird.
Well-
I mean, oh, you have it? Oh, because I mean, you're talking about, that's a lot of money.
yeah, I mean, if you want to just email it to us, Yem, or is that an extra copy?
Question 8, there's an extra copy.
Councilor McGivern?
I am not sure why the police department can't enforce the speed limit in this case, without a sign. But I've seen in other communities, signs that are thickly settled, speed limit enforced. Can we put those up?
advisory sign, yes.
Yeah. and the
Without
police
this
can-
traffic study?
The black and white sign's got to be done by the,
DOT.
well.
And then maybe the police would feel more comfortable giving a ticket for over 30.
Correct.
Okay.
Section 17, that's for the Section 17, governs the statutory speed limit, which is 30 for thickly settled area, 20 for school zone, 50 for highway, And Chapter 18 covers the black and white regulatory, speed, posted speed sign.
Well, the way that I'm reading question number 8, this looks like it's a FAQ, frequently asked questions.
Sure.
So it says, can cities and towns post their own speed limits? And the way that I interpret that means their own speed limit, because the state speed limit for residential areas is 30.
Yes.
And so the way that I interpret this is that if we wanted to post something other than 30, then we would have to go through that process. But if we're going to post a sign for 30, it doesn't seem to trigger that process because we're not creating our own speed limit. We're putting up a standard speed limit sign.
If you post the speed limit sign, it has to go through the speed zone, speed study.
May only be posted, okay.
Yeah,
I see.
that's the whole issue.
May only be posted upon the establishment of the regulatory speed limit.
So that's gonna cost a lot of money.
So do we want to table this and allow Counselor Bacon to make the ultimate decision, and we could relay the information that, number one, to post the speed limit sign requires going through a traffic study and a state approval process. Number two, the police can enforce the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit without the signs being there.
Correct.
And number three was the recommendation that Counselor McGivern gave, that advisory signs for thickly settled speed limit enforced is something that we could do.
Which
I'd
is-
say just make that a motion, just move it on, because by keeping this in committee, what's that gonna, we're just gonna repeat that. So,
Well, I'm
But-
just,
Well, also what I'm trying to say is that after November 7th, if you choose to, that as a city, can opt to reduce the 30 mile an hour to 25 mile an hour, and you can post the signs, say, at the, Route 5 from Northampton and Holyoke boundary, 141 East Hampton, so all the main entry points can be posted so that everybody's aware of it. And
the only reason is it's Linda's order, and what she wants to do is not achievable, and Joe's suggestion for what we can do seems different.
okay.
Counselor Lopez?
Is it possible, or is it cheaper to do speed humps if the neighborhood want any speed hump on any of these streets, Clayton, and, I mean, she's talking about all the side street on Homestead Avenue. So, can you, I mean,
Well,
maybe
the-
when you talk to Linda,
I think the
talk
enforcement
to her
is,
about speed hump and see if that will be the solution for some of those side street. I'm not sure, I mean,
Yeah.
you hear with the title, so maybe you can help us with the speed humps. I think that will be a lot cheaper than, or the other one, the one that you're suggesting to decrease or go down to 25,
that would be the cheapest.
that would be the cheaper, but I think that if we're gonna do that, we will have to hold a public hearing just to make sure that we don't get
Yes.
any
Yes.
flash from the community.
Correct, yes.
So, but I mean, I agree, that will be the cheaper.
Well, motion to table.
Motion made to table, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
All right,
Aye. So moved.
motion to take number 11.
Motion made
Second.
and seconded, all in favor?
All right,
So moved. This is filed by Councilors Bartley and Jordan, that the city council consider an on-street parking ban for the winter months for certain streets that due to accumulated snowfall become too narrow and impede or prevent emergency vehicles from passing through. Under discussion, Councilor Bartley.
that's self-explanatory, so, I guess there's one person called, must have called up all of us. I just happened to write the order.
Brookline?
Yeah, right, so, I mean, there's a lot of narrow streets, it's too many for you to count, but, did you want to
I
do this on a
guess,
trial basis? Does this make no sense? You tell me.
Well, in the event of snowstorm, it makes perfectly good sense, but, if you have a street like Brookline where you have duplex, multifamily homes and no driveways, where would people park?
Not on the street, so that's gonna, but with enough notice, I mean, for as far as for practical reasons, right, that's a good question, I don't
But you're
know.
talking about the whole winter, from mid-December to mid-March.
Well, right, so maybe that can always be amended, so it doesn't have to, it could be for, emergency notice, I mean, we can put some flexibility in it.
Councilor McGivern.
Yeah, currently, when there's a storm, and we're gonna be plowing, the parking ban is put into force. If DPW chooses to put it in force. The option of, for good reason, you can keep the parking ban in force unlimited, even after the storm. We've done that before.
Yes.
But we've done that on a citywide basis. I think what we're looking for is, can we do it on a limited basis on certain streets?
Like I said, from a snow removal operation, if you can get rid of all cars and off the street, it'll make the snow removal a lot more efficient. We can.
And that's usually spoken by people who have driveways. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
So we've gone through that argument, believe me. You don't want to hear us argue that one. Okay? Forget the police, forget the snow removal. We do the best we can with cul-de-sacs, we do the best we can to make people have a place to park, and at the same time allow emergency vehicles to do their job. But we are, in some neighborhoods, all rental property.
Right.
There's not enough off-street parking.
Right.
But there are streets, and Councilor Bartley's got one. Hitchcock can be very narrow at certain times of the winter. Brookline is the one that we get the most complaints about, but there are other ones that are just as narrow. And there's got to be a way where, once those snowbanks build up, that we can put a parking ban in effect because of snowbanks, because the street's narrower.
So right now, we would post no parking on one side of the street for one storm and then reverse in the next storm. So our guys can go on clear, and you
Right.
could still park on one side. Sort of like a happy medium. But should you have a snowstorm every 4 days and we can't keep up, it would make perfectly good sense to say, let's have a snow ban on both sides of the street until we'll be able to catch up. We don't have time to push the snow to the side of the road, and where we have to come back and, snow blow and ship the snow off the street. That's time consuming. So.
And I understand, from a, snow removal perspective, that's what the ordinance is about. But there have been years where we've had multiple storms, and we've literally kept the ban in effect indefinitely to almost springtime, until it started melting, because even the streets that normally aren't narrow were narrow, because we had so many storms. So there is a way not to lift the ban, but it's a citywide one. It's either there is a ban citywide or there is no ban citywide. What we're asking for is, how can we do it,
street.
temporarily on certain streets that become narrower a lot quicker than other streets.
Again, if we can get it done with some of the street in the city, I'm all for it. I guess I would like to take this back to the superintendent and maybe even with fire chief and police chief.
Is the superintendent invited tonight?
I'm not sure.
Be nice if we get to meet him.
I do have that order. We're waiting for the committee to take it up.
And we can come up with a small list.
Yeah.
And-
'Cause I think maybe, our questions are going beyond the engineer's scope here, because my next question is, on these streets, why don't we immediately remove
That's what I
the
was-
snow?
That's what I was
Not
saying.
plow it,
Yeah.
remove it.
That will be the best way.
It's time consuming, obviously, a priority.
It's life-saving, because you literally cannot get a fire vehicle, and sometimes you cannot get an ambulance up and
Correct,
down these
correct.
streets.
Like, the priority is to
timely
make the
fashion.
street passable, whether it be one lane or, 2 lane. But, yes, some of the narrow roads, you would literally have to, snow blow and ship the snow using trucks.
Councilor Bartley.
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest, if for now, is that we ask our admin assistant to make a photocopy of this and to send it to the fire chief and the police chief. So perhaps those two gentlemen can coordinate with you and the,
W supervisor.
yeah, what's
Mike McManus.
Mr. McManus. So Ryan will take a copy of this, he'll send this to the, Mr. Pond and Mr. Neiswanger, as well as Mr. McManus and you, and say, here's the order. Can you come up with a list of streets as comprehensive as possible? And then perhaps you can, when you come back here in the, I guess when you're back here in November.
Sure.
I think the chair usually has you in once a month, and maybe Mr. McManus can join you. You come back in November, I still think we'd have enough time to, so that gives you a month.
Sure.
Okay, is that reasonable? So could we, I'll make a motion to table this until, I'll make a motion that the admin assistant send it to the aforementioned public safety people, and that this be tabled until the 22nd of November.
Before we accept that motion, I just want to ask one more question. Yem, what is the current policy for the winter parking bans when they do go into effect?
We would ban, I believe, the odd side, before for one storm, and the next storm, we would ban the other side. Reverse.
No, everybody loves our ordinance.
It's an even year and an odd year thing.
Is that what that is? I'm sorry.
Do not confuse people who are listening.
The outside is a one-way streets, and the even sides are two-way streets, except on a third Thursday of the month.
Okay. But then
Because I know it is confusing. I always wondered, I mean, when I was growing up, it was related to so if the storm fell on an odd numbered day, the odd side of the street had the ban. And if it was falling on the even side of the street, and then the following day, similar to what is being proposed here, you would do the other side of the street. So it was always odd and even, and it cut down on confusion. So I wonder if there's any interest in doing that. Is it an ordinance that states the parking ban? It's not easy to change either. Do you find that would be more common sense, like for residents to do an odd and even number parking ban based on the day as opposed to the year? Does anybody have any intuition on it?
Well, the whole issue is winter's not far, and then, I mean, to make any changes now is gonna create a lot of problems. I mean,
I think that it's nice that we have the reverse 911, the ability to make a
phone
call with everybody and just
Yeah.
kind of,
but
So leave it alone and just use the reverse 911 system?
Okay.
Okay.
Is that what it's called? I might be wrong.
The only issue more hotly contested than the actual management of the sewer plant is this issue, parking, winter parking. How many discussions, Councilor Lopez, have we?
I don't wanna go back. I need to.
I don't know.
I really don't think it's a bad idea, but I think the point's taken that it would be nice if we had a better website and it was posted there. If we could send a gentle reminder to Jimmy Lavelle and to anybody who sends out invoices, that they include that in their materials, and whatever else, just that, our winter, and just explain what the ordinance is. Just explain what the ordinance is. So,
We
I don't think
used
it's a bad
to, we
idea.
used to get something in the Holyoke Gas and Electric bill with the winter parking regulations in Spanish and English. I haven't seen it in the last 3 or 4 years. but
Council,
we used to.
we'll just file the order then.
Okay, let's file the
Right.
order.
Okay, so then on Council Bartley's motion to table, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
So I'll file the order under your name, and we'll just do it in Spanish. Want to do all three of us?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll just file the order for,
And for Joe also, I'm pretty sure he would love to be included.
Sure,
really?
sure.
You want
I'd be
to put your name
honored.
on order, Joe?
I'd be honored.
Oh, I'd be honored that you're honored. Okay, this is good news. Take up number 12, please.
Motion made.
Second.
And seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Item number 12 is filed by Counselor Leahy that the Department of Public Works paint a do not block the intersection at the intersection of Columbus and Northampton Streets. Yem, have you had a chance to review this intersection?
I know this was filed back in September, but I have not had a chance to really look at the traffic behavior.
Is
I would
this-
like to. I know this is something that we have done on Route 5, close to
Kmart.
Kmart. So I don't see why we can't get it, but I'd like to take one more look at it. It's, that intersection of Sargent and Route 5 and Route 5 and Columbus, they're so close to each other. So I want to look at the impact of traffic.
So motion to table to November 22nd.
Motion made
Table.
and seconded?
Second,
All
sorry.
in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Motion to take up number,
Thank you.
oh, yeah, well, do we need Yem? What else do we need Yem here?
13.
13, yeah.
We need Yem for 13, for handicap parking?
Not
Just-
really.
No,
I mean,
no, sorry.
Once you vote on, I will go and look at the physical layout of the.
Yep, and that's it.
Are we set with Yem?
I think so.
Yeah, it's a city on that, yeah, so.
I think you're all set then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bring the superintendent next time.
Mr. McManus. Well, we have an order to have him come and do a meet and greet in public.
I think he's
One of the
here on
committees.
Thursday with
Oh, he is?
public safety.
Ah.
Oh, he's going to be here Thursday. Okay, I didn't see the agenda. Okay, that's the order I filed, so there you go. His big
Great.
debut. Motion to take on order 13?
Thank you,
Second.
Yem.
Thank you.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
That the DPW, so moved, that the DPW place 2 handicap parking spots on the city-owned parking lot on the corner of South Summer and Adams Street, per recommendations of the Handicap Commissioner, Donald Welsh. I didn't file the order, and I don't have any information about it, but,
If I may,
sure, Counselor Lopez.
it's basically on South Summer Street, there are so many cars, and the city owns this lot, and there's a few people that are disabled, and it will be a lot easier for them to park on the lot. And that's why he filed the order. I spoke to one of the family, and they're having a hard time. There's handicap parking spaces on the street, but there's people that are parked there most of the time. So it's one of those issues.
The recommendation comes from the Handicap Commissioner, Donald Welsh, so I'm willing to defer to him on this.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
So a motion that we adopt and put into legal form?
Second?
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Item number 14, filed by Counsel Bartley.
Yeah, I just want to leave it on the table because, I just have the whole committee here for this one.
That sounds good. Item 15, do we feel similarly about tabling the rest in the absence of the maker? Item 15, we've taken up before. Do we have draft language, Sarah?
Right, Sarah? Yeah, that's what we
Yeah,
have here.
15
Oh,
we
it's this
do.
one.
I'll make a motion. Wait a minute.
We have draft language.
Yeah, it's right here. Do you want it?
I just passed it over to
okay.
David.
I have it. I'll make a motion to take 15 off the table.
Motion has been made
Second.
and seconded to take item number 15 up off the table. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Under discussion, it seems like we have a draft here. So the order says that no person shall be appointed to any board or commission if any taxes, sewer, or water bills are unpaid. A member of any board or commission who fails to pay taxes, sewer, or water bills shall resign their seat. The treasurer or collector shall provide a list of payment status of each appointed person to the city council twice a year. And so the draft language that we have is titled Article 4, Boards, Commissions, and Councils, Division 1 generally. It's adding a new section, 2-422, Board Appointees, Payment of Taxes and Municipal Charges. No person shall be appointed or reappointed to any city board, commission, authority, or multiple member body, whether appointed by the mayor, city council, or otherwise, unless, at the time of such appointment, said person is current in the payment of all taxes, water and sewer charges, liens, assessments, fines, and any other payments due to the city of any kind, or said person has entered into and is in compliance with the payment plan for such charges.
Any other discussion?
Under discussion, Council Bartley.
Yeah, so, Madam Chair, the order is a good one, but, okay. And I think we had a pretty good draft here from the law department, although I have one addition just for the committee to consider, but I just want to point out two things I don't like about this order, which I don't see them in the draft ordinance here. So one thing is, you don't pay your bill, you shall resign your seat. But I think this coverage says no person shall be appointed or reappointed. I think that pretty much covers it, unless there's some commissions that kind of go on and on without a term limit. Do we have any without a term limit? They all have term limits, right? There's 1 or 2 or 3 years, right? Yeah. So I think that pretty much covers it. Shall not be appointed or reappointed. Because this whole thing about shall, and then that second clause there, the treasurer collector shall provide a list of the payment status of each appointed person to the city council twice. Yeah, I think that's a little bit aggressive, and I don't see it in the language.
It's not built into the ordinance.
No.
Well, I know, I see that, but I'm pointing it out. I mean, she, the maker, is not here to speak for herself, and so I'm just pointing out that language is in her order. So, and I agree that it's not in the language. However, I see the language here, no person shall be appointed, and all the rest of that. I'd like to add that, as kind of a middle ground between what the maker of the order wrote about, resign the seat, and about a list of the payment status at council twice a year. I just wrote down a few notes, and I'm just going to briefly, may I, Madam Chair, just read? Okay, so, and I'll read it slowly, and you don't have to write this down, just for your considerations. But basically, it's that the person who's appointed has to acknowledge the ordinance existence. So I said person shall be given a copy of this ordinance, that's A. B, be required to sign an acknowledgement of receipt of the ordinance. C, the original receipt shall be maintained by the Human Resources Director. And then D, the receipt shall be kept in confidence, but made available to the person, the appointee, the mayor, the city council president, and/or the chair of the ordinance committee. Now, maybe I'm overstepping my bounds with that, but I don't really think it's necessary to come up with a list of, every appointees, like that article was in the paper a year or two ago about whether we paid our tax and sewer bills and all the rest of that. Somebody asked for a list of all the city councilors, and, I think every person complied. I don't remember anybody not complying, so that, but that's, we're elected officials, and maybe we have to be held to a slightly higher standard. But I don't really like the language of us having to get a whole list of the stuff. So that's why I suggested those four, so basically that the person who's appointed has to acknowledge, in writing, has to acknowledge that he or she received this ordinance, that they know they have to pay their bills, but the only persons really who should have access to that are the HR director, the mayor, I guess, and the city council president. And I added the ordinance chair, just because the ordinance chair is kind of, but maybe that's too much, but.
I think I really like the amendments that you made in terms of they're given a copy, they acknowledge the receipt, it's maintained in HR, but additionally, we only make the appointments every 1 or 3 years, so why do we, to the makers, writing here, why would we need it every 6 months? We should just have it,
Definitely not. Definitely not.
one month before the appointment comes due, and that's usually
Yeah, that's good enough.
kept in HR. Sarah wants to approach us, sorry.
I just wanted to point out, so in those restrictions, the actual receipt would be a public record under the public records law, so it couldn't be kept in confidence. the public records law would trump that.
Okay.
But the
well,
payment, and whether the payment had been made or not.
Payments are, again, payment records are public records. Anyone can come in and find out.
So maybe we need to, in the receipt, make sure that they acknowledge that
Oh, yeah.
that payments are public record.
Yeah, that all that information would be public record.
I mean, I think that's their point, is that, we have to pay our bills. We do it anytime, we do it all the time anyhow for special permits. I think that's where she was going with it. So we don't issue special permits until Kevin reads off the list that they're good to go with the other. I think that's all we want to see. So, fine, I just don't want to embarrass anybody. That was my only thought there, but if it's subject to public record law, then that's it.
Counselor McGivern?
The other issue is, we're talking about anywhere between 30 and 50 people. And the treasurer is only going to see someone that's delinquent if someone requests a lien. The tax collector, obviously with the tax collection, but, when it comes to sewer, gas and electric, water, that requires each of those departments to review, who's paid and who hasn't paid. And I don't think we can be asking the treasurer to be contacting 3 or 4 other different departments for 50 people.
Who checks that for when we have the special permit renewals and also the license renewals?
Circulate, right?
I think we're only getting, if someone's got a lien request, if it's reported to them. I don't think they're checking.
No, it's got to go around.
No.
No, because
But, that's, every blue moon, that's one here, one there, one here. This request is for like 30 to 50 people on a regular basis.
well, once a year. And
Well, the
and
way
all
it's
at the
written,
same
it's more than
time.
once a year.
Well, we're not,
Yeah.
we're not going with the way the order was filed. We're going with the draft language, which you have, I hope. You don't, or we have copies? You don't?
No.
Okay. Get a copy.
Counselor Lopez?
It's okay.
I think that, Joe, if we make it in a way that the human resource department will be in charge of doing everything, I think that will be the best way. That way he can get all
Absolutely.
that information, and
Absolutely.
even before any appointment or reappointment, we get all that information together, and we can move forward.
I don't have an issue with that, but if we're giving someone work, I think we should at least have them in front of us, talking to them
Well,
about
that's
it.
what that's a good point. We should invite him and talk to Mr. Robert.
Well, I think this was a good discussion anyhow, and we can table it till Bob comes in.
Okay,
But we should make a copy, we should send a copy to him, to the human resource at least.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that Ryan send, or Sarah send a copy of this to Bob for his review. Not the, well,
Copy her language. That's what I like.
well,
I don't like the order.
well, I guess I want to make a motion then to amend it now.
to include this?
Yeah, to just include the acknowledgement stuff.
Thank you.
All right, it doesn't have to be like exactly, just the acknowledgement, so, they acknowledged it, and, they got, whoever the person is, has to receive a copy and acknowledge receipt of it. I mean, that's like the point of it, right?
And I
Yeah.
think that they should also be made aware that their records, their payment records will be public information. Even without, it is public information whether or not they're elected officials, right?
But I think that's a good point by the chair made. I think that's a very good point. So these folks who are just, your regular person, they don't know that Chapter 66, Section 10 exists. What's that? What? Well, we ought to make a copy for them that says, listen, you're getting involved with the public, and your world, not going to happen 1 in 1,000 chances, but it might happen. Your world could be, publicized, and you ought to be made aware of it. And furthermore, you signed a little form here. Here you go, Jane Smith. You signed the form acknowledging receipt of it. So I think the chair makes a good point that that public record law should be disclosed to these potential appointees, as well as this draft ordinance. So I'd like to make a motion that we adopt that. Strike that. Amend this to add that language. So that's my motion. That's my motion.
Second.
All right.
Motion made and seconded to amend the draft ordinance before us to include a provision for receipt of public records notification, and that acknowledgement, we get assigned receipt of acknowledgement that they understand the public records law as well as this particular section related to taxes and municipal charges. All in favor?
Aye.
So
So I'll
moved.
make a motion now to have Sarah send a copy of this amended ordinance to Mr. Judge, and that the administrative assistant invite Mr. Judge to a future meeting when this is brought up again by the chair of the committee. And that we table this for now.
Motion made and seconded to table this item, but give a copy of the amended language to our HR director, Bob Judge, so that he can review it, and also that the administrative assistant invite Mr. Judge in for discussion at a future date when this is taken up. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Item number 16 seems like another one that we
Motion
would
to
like
take up the table.
You want to take it up without the full committee
Yeah.
here? Okay, item number 16, there was motion made to take it up. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Madam Chair, under discussion?
Under discussion.
Do you want to read it first?
Yes, thank you. So that no budgeted salary line can be increased following approval of the budget without an appropriation submitted to and approved by the city council. Under discussion, Council Bartley.
Yeah, so and the only reason I want to bring this up, Madam Chair, is that we did receive draft language from the law department, which I kind of like, because it kind of lays it out. I wanted to just to suggest, I mean, because in her draft language, it says, no salary, this is to section 235, no salary line shall be increased by transfer of funds to an amount greater than that fixed by the city council through its adoption of the municipal budget, without an appropriation submitted to and approved by the city council. So I just wanted to add, just for your consideration, after the word through, I wanted to add the word it's. And then I just wanted to tighten the language because it seems to me that if we just leave it like this, we don't make it clear that the city council has to give its prior approval before a line item is increased. So I'm just saying it out loud. I don't even want to make the motion now. I'm just saying it out loud for the committee. So I want to add that word "its" through its adoption. And then I would just want the committee to consider for next time we take this up that we add some language that says, that makes it explicit that city council has to give prior, if you want to pass it. Now, if you don't want to pass it, that's another story. But if you did want to pass it, I think we should make it clear that city council has to give its prior approval before any salary line is increased post the adoption of the municipal budget. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, so from what I understand right now, it's just the amendment for the word "its" adoption?
Yeah, that's my only amendment.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And just remind me, Sarah, is this for non-union employees only? Or is it more broadly applied? And how does that work?
This would be essentially changing the auditing principles, so it would apply across the board to.
The what principles? Auditing?
The auditing principles, yeah. So it would apply to union and non-union employees.
So my only question then is, how does that affect operations in City Hall? Like, that would be like my biggest question.
Now, I can't give you a clear picture of exactly how it will affect everything. From my experience, I can say that anytime we settle a grievance with a union to say if they're claiming acting out of grade or performing additional job functions, and we needed to give them more money for that, we would need that to come before the city council. And if that weren't approved, we would see litigation over that. I mean, anytime, any agreements would have to come before the council to be approved. That's for the unions for themselves. The other thing too is if, like for example, in the police or fire departments, if they needed to hire, if we wanted to move money to hire, say another patrolman, they wouldn't be able to add any money to that line item without coming to the council first in order to do that.
So this is basically fixing each line item.
For
And
salaries.
every time the police chief wants to move money from, I don't know, whatever, into overtime or disability, he needs to stop what he's doing and then come in here and get that transfer approved.
If it's going into a salary line item.
Oh, it's just the salary line items.
The other place that, the other thing that I can remember, so sometimes with budgets, we don't all have extra money available to pay buybacks when someone leaves. For example, like when Kara left, that money came out of her salary line item to pay her buyback, which means there's less money in that salary line item. So any department head would have to come to the council now to get money approved for a buyback so that they could essentially hire the successor to that position.
Are overtime, is that line item considered salary or is that separate? Because that's my biggest concern, and I feel like that would be my motivation for passing this. Otherwise, I feel like it creates a lot of micromanagement and congestion.
I mean, arguably it is treated as wages, but it's not, overtime is not specific to each individual. Like, for example, there's if there's so many employees, if there's so many patrolmen in the police department, they don't budget a certain amount of money to pay those patrolmen. It all comes out of one big pot, essentially, based on the hours that are worked. So I wouldn't qualify that as a salary line item.
Mm-hmm. So transfers could be made into
And
overtime.
into overtime and out of overtime, but not into personnel
Individual.
salary line items, which would be and it varies per department. Some departments only have one person in each like salary line item. Some have multiple, like we have multiple patrolmen, multiple sergeants and lieutenants and everything.
So, but actually, so the check would be there on moving money out of the overtime line item into a salaried employee's
Line
line
you
item
wouldn't be able to
would
do that.
require that same sort
Yeah,
of
you'd
approval. Okay. I think we're going to wind up taking this up at another time. Counselor McGivern?
Sarah? Trying to catch you. Sorry. Sarah, Mass General Law governs a lot of this. I'm glad you said auditing, because certainly the city wants to audit the way the city wants to audit, but they have to according to Mass General Law. And sometimes we create ordinances that are very, and I think this one is intended to correct some concerns that we had over the last year, especially in the budget, of increases that seem to be way out of whack and against what the city council had dictated to the appropriation process or through the budget process. But what you just said, this opens up a can of worms and completely micromanages some departments to a point where they might as well just come in here every week. Because in the area of union contracts, if it goes accordingly, any salary increases are not, it can be negotiated, but are not in effect until the contract with some appropriation is approved.
Yes.
Now, the problem with contracts is they're usually multiple years. So the initial appropriation would be for the current year, either by budget or anticipating the budget next year. But once we accept the contract the first year, those salaries can't be decreased by a vote the following years. So that's kind of makes no sense to have, monies that's transferred into a union account to have to be revoted by this body because we can't vote it down because the contract is already in place. Salary structures, classifications, this is where I think we get into some of the problems that we've seen recently is where there's a tier structure for, say, a department head, and a new department head starts at the low tier. And, the time comes in the middle of the year where they're qualified to take that bump of the next tier. It's an ordinance that the city council has already adopted, an appropriation that was there, or money that's transferred in. And I think that's where we get, a little bit concerned of sometimes why are some individuals getting their bump and others are not. And I thought that was the intent of this ordinance. I've yet to see a contract for the fire chief's salary. I've yet to see the city council ever approve a contract or that the salary is by contract. And last year, we learned that there was a contract made with the fire chief, which, we adopted the original language to change the chief of police salary to contract when Marty Dunn was mayor, and that was a long time ago. We've never adopted any language to change the fire chief's salary to a contractual one as opposed to the salary schedule itself. I know I'm rambling on, but can you give us an idea of, does this conflict with Mass General Law, and what kind of issues is this going to cause besides what you just noted here?
Well, so it does not conflict with Mass General Law. When I reference our auditing practices, our Mass General Law allows us, essentially, departments to move money within classification. So you have like personnel services,
Right.
you have expenses, without council approval. So you can do a transfer if I need more money in my litigation account and I have extra money in in-state travel, I would be able to move it into that without, it doesn't have to come before the council for that, just approval of the mayor. And it goes through the auditor's office. So this is essentially making that more restrictive, and you can do that. So it would be making it more restrictive by saying, you can transfer money within the personnel services line item, just not to salary line items within that. But as for the effect, I'm only referencing any how it would affect me and how in what I do as part of my job. But I'm sure it would affect many other departments, and I don't know the specifics of that. I don't know. I don't see the transfers or what is done in many other departments. So I think it would be worth
You
it to
cited
get
some
there.
notable ones just by the contracts that your department negotiates, as delegated by the mayor. And when we get into those larger departments, line items, cover 80 police officers, so many firefighters, and in any course of time, some of those slots are not filled. And sometimes in the beginning of the year, even though the ordinance is not adjusted, the budget is not allowed to fund for so many of those positions. But as money becomes available, sometimes it makes sense, to put the money in there and to make sure we have the numbers that the ordinance calls for, not above and beyond the ordinance. And we've had battles where we used to fight with mayors who, refused to fund the entire ordinance. And the biggest one, I think, was Ernie Prue versus the city of Holyoke. And, Mayor Prue won that one because it's subject to appropriation. But, if this is all encompassing, it's going to cause a lot of headaches. I'm not talking about us, but for department heads. Because every time a dollar is moved, they're going to be looking to say, well, I need city council approval.
Council Bartley.
Yeah, so did I hear you say that these transfers require mayoral and the approval of the city auditor?
Well, I'm talking about transfers within classifications.
Within classifications, that's right. So both the mayor and the city auditor have to,
Yeah, it goes through a process. It gets signed by the department head, it gets
That's
approved by
Mass
the
General Law.
auditor, and it gets signed by the mayor, and then the money can be transferred within classifications.
so long as the mayor and the city auditor sign off on it.
Yep.
No, I heard that, Joe, but no, I'm emphasizing it for a reason.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a city auditor, we have a city auditor that's in a temporary position now going into his third year. So, if we had the city council appoint the city auditor, that would obfuscate I think, a lot of this.
No, it certainly
I'm
has to be
just making the
approved
point,
by
Joe.
by the auditor.
Just
Council
emphasizing the
does
point.
appoint the auditor
No, I get that, Joe.
when we do our job.
I get that. I'm making, just for the folks at home, and from my friend Mr. Conway, who's here in the audience, I just want to make it clear that, but, you know, I heard what you said, I think I'm just trying to emphasize it. Thank you.
Good point.
Any other comments on this item?
Motion to table.
Motion made, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Now, what's
So
17?
before we close, we have a number of, I'm sorry?
On the 17th, and on
We have a number of handicap placards.
Okay.
That
How
the-
many?
We'll do them as a package.
Oh,
It's
okay.
all number 17.
Okay.
Um,
Well, motion to take 17 as a, what do we do?
Motion to take 17 up off the table.
Oh, second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
I think I have one there.
Joe,
I'm still waiting for.
DGR is going to meet the 3rd, as you know. Well, we set a second date December for that thing you talked about yesterday, on the 1st. Okay. I emailed, and I've got a majority of the body that said they'd be there, but I didn't hear from you. But we said the 1st of December at 6:30. It's in your email box. Okay, but just want to,
Okay, so we have,
before you go. Okay, so you're good to go, okay.
we have a handicap space at 271 Appleton Street, which Donald Welsh said, there's no application needed for this one, that we should just file this on our own, if the city wants to create this.
If I may, I filed that order, and.
It's Gladys LeBron Martinez.
So that's a different one then, sorry.
So we could forward that to Councilor LeBron Martinez and see if we want to file that as an order instead of the handicap application.
Well, Ryan, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Did the Commission on Disabilities approve all these, or did they deny them all? Did they deny one?
133 Sergeant Street is to approve.
Okay.
588 South Summer Street is to approve. 143 Oak Street is to approve. And then 91 Northeast Street is to deny.
Okay, so, do you want a motion?
We could adopt all those recommendations.
That's the motion. Let's adopt all the COD recommendations.
I agree, but what's the reason why he's denying that one, the last one?
So, Mr. Trejo owns the house and it has a driveway.
Okay, good enough. All right, that's fine.
Okay. So, motion has been made and seconded to adopt all the recommendations from the Commission on Disabilities. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right, so then we are all set.
Adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
So
Okay, good
moved.
job, thank you.
Great. So, I gotta go and get to that
We
one.
got you out of here
Yeah.
before 9.
Yeah, I gotta go there.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.